shedding an identity that was forced onto me for decades. AKA, I kept documents for 40 years because no one would believe me. Picture this. I'm standing in my apartment holding a printout from my answering machine. It's a log of incoming calls. One number appears over and over again. My mother-in-law's number. She'd been calling and hanging up for weeks. I knew it was her, but every time I brought it up, she made me feel like I was paranoid, like I was imagining things, like something was wrong with me. So I got an answering machine that logged phone numbers. I printed it out. I showed it to her, her own number, right there in black and white. She looked at the paper and she said, "That wasn't me." What? The evidence was right there in my hand, and it didn't matter. If you've ever experienced that, if you've ever held proof in your hands while someone looked you in the eye and denied reality, then you know exactly the kind of madness that creates inside you. You start to wonder if you're the crazy one. You're not. If you know what it feels like to hit that big wall of denial, this video is for you. Section 1. The experience of being told who I was. Hi, I'm Marie. Welcome to another episode of Journey Expansion. Here's what I've come to understand about my life, and maybe how you feel about your life too. I spent decades being told who I was, not asked, not discovered, told, repeatedly, sometimes violently. When I was 7 years old, I was sent to live at a Catholic children's home. It was a boarding school. My mother had multiple sclerosis. My father had disabilities from World War II. They couldn't care for me, so I was sent away to be raised by nuns, black-robed strangers. My first night there, I said a word I didn't know was bad. My parents said it all the time at home. A nun put a bar of soap in my mouth and made me stand there for 10 minutes while it foamed up. I swallowed it. I felt sick. I had no idea what I'd done wrong. And that set the tone for the next 5 years of my life. One particularly mean nun would bounce a quarter on my bed, and if the blanket sagged even slightly, she would rip the blankets off, and she'd slap me. She used to scream that I was stupid and make me do it again, slap me more. And when I couldn't get it right, sometimes I missed breakfast because I just couldn't satisfy her. Sometimes I just stood there and shook because I didn't know what else to do. There were times that I froze in class. I was too terrified to answer questions. They decided I wasn't trying hard enough, so they hit my hands with rulers. They made me kneel on pointers and made me hold books on my outstretched arms until I collapsed. Eventually, they gave up. They decided I was retarded. I knew I wasn't, but here's the thing. I was relieved when they labeled me that, because then they finally left me alone. So think about that. A child was relieved to be called retarded because it meant the abuse would stop. That's where I started. That's the water I learned to swim in. And it taught me something that would shape the next 40 years. My perception of myself, it didn't matter. People with authority would decide who I was, and if I disagreed, I was wrong. Section 2. The diary was my only witness. When I was 12, my parents pulled me out of school and we moved to Arizona. Suddenly, I had the opposite problem. Not authoritarian control, but complete neglect. My parents ignored me as much as possible. I went from being constantly punished to being invisible. They urged me to go out to ride my bike. I used to ride alone through remote desert areas and disappear for the whole day. I wouldn't come home until sunset. I was taught to be passive to the will of others. I was being groomed, though I didn't have that language then, groomed to be a caretaker, an old maid, a martyr. So I started writing in a diary. At 15, this is what I wrote. I haven't got any friends, I'm lonely, I smoke, and I'm very insecure. My parents always give me a hard time. I can't talk to them, so it'll be really nice having you to talk to. You. The diary. A notebook. That notebook was the only safe place I had, the only witness to my actual life, the only thing that wouldn't argue with me, gaslight me, or tell me I was remembering wrong. At 17, I wrote, I know why I'm so intimidated by people, but what can I do about it? I'm scared of people because all my life I've been teased and told how ugly I was. I could see it, even as a teenager. I could see what had been done to me. But seeing it and being able to do something about it are two different things. And I had no one to confirm that what I was seeing was real. So I kept writing. I kept documenting. Not because I was strategic, but because I was desperate. Section 3. The same trap, different walls. Here's the part that's hard to admit. After everything I went through as a kid, after escaping my parents' house, after building a life of my own, I walked right into another trap. I was 23 when I started dating Larry. He seemed sweet, attentive. He asked my ex-boyfriend's permission before asking me out, and I thought that was romantic. What I didn't understand, what I couldn't see, was that I was walking into another system designed to make me disappear. Larry's mother and aunt were controlling in ways that I'd never encountered before. They controlled his income through the family business. They dangled inheritance to keep him compliant. They called constantly. His mother even opened my underwear drawer when she came to visit. They told me I needed to convert to their religion, to become a mini version of them, and they denied everything. His mother would call me and hang up over and over. When I confronted her, she denied it, even with the evidence in my hands. She sent Larry guilt-laden letters, Dear Abby clippings about forgiveness, and notes about how children should honor their parents. She'd write things like, motherhood, one heart in two bodies, and in the same breath threatened to cut him out of the will if he didn't comply. And Larry, he went along with all of it, every time. He couldn't stand up for himself, and he certainly couldn't stand up for me. There's a recorded phone call I still have. Larry finally contacted his biological father's family. He learned a different story than the one his mother told him. So he called her to ask what really happened. She'd included a letter to him in his baby book in her own handwriting, that his biological father was a bum who couldn't hold a job and abandoned them. When Larry confronted her, she said, I never told you he was a bum. He was holding the baby book with her handwritten letter in it, and she just said it didn't happen. I mean, what are you supposed to do with that when you just hit a wall? She goes into complete denial. And then his aunt called. You know what her advice was? Try to get both sides. There's always 3 sides to everything. What? No, there aren't 3 sides when you're holding the evidence in your hands. There's the truth, and there's the lie someone's telling you to your face. That's all. Section 4. Why I became a document hoarder. I didn't keep all these records because I was organized. I didn't save the letters, logs, and recordings because I had some master plan. I did it because I was trying to hold on to my sanity. When everyone around you denies reality, when people rewrite history while you're standing there remembering it differently, you start to need evidence just to trust yourself. The diaries I kept at 15 weren't about preserving memories. They were about creating one single place where my version of events existed, where someone, even if it was just future me, could look back and say, yes, that happened. You're not making it up. The answering machine log, the letters from my mother-in-law, the recorded phone calls, I kept all of it, not as ammunition, but as proof that I wasn't crazy. I saved a letter where Larry's mother promised him equity in her condo if he'd rent it from her. When I asked how he'd get equity in something he didn't own, she wrote a letter clarifying, if I sell my condo, a portion of the proceeds will go to you. A portion, undefined, at some point, if she happens to sell. That's not equity, that's a leash. But I kept the letter because I knew someday someone would try to rewrite what was promised. And they did. Yes, they did. When she died, everything went to her husband. When he died, his will explicitly stated, and these are his exact words, under no circumstance do I want any of my estate to be distributed to Larry. After decades of dangling that inheritance, they made sure he got nothing. And Larry's Aunt Shirley, the one who told him to get both sides, was named executor. I kept those documents for 40 years, and every single one of them told the truth. Section 5. What it costs you. I want to talk about what this does to a person, because it's not just about the facts. It's about what happens inside you when your reality is constantly being erased. You stop trusting yourself. You freeze. You go along with things that don't make sense because fighting feels impossible. Because every time you've tried to fight, someone's told you that you're the problem. It's you. I moved into that Sheridan Road condo even though I didn't want to. I gave up a building I loved, a landlady I had a real relationship with, a future we'd planned. I did it because Larry wanted it, and somewhere deep inside me, I didn't feel like I had a choice. That phrase, I didn't feel like I had a choice, I found it everywhere when I looked back at my own writing. It's what gaslighting does. It doesn't just make you doubt your memories, it makes you doubt your right to want things, your right to say no, your right to exist as a full person with your own needs. I made a decision in that condo that I've never regretted. I decided I would never have children. I watched my mother-in-law go through my closets, and I thought, if I bring a child into this family, this is what they'll inherit. This is the system they'll be shaped by. These are the people who will try to mold them. I knew what it felt like to be an unwanted child. My own parents told me I was a burden. They neglected me. I wasn't going to pass that down. That decision, to break the cycle by refusing to continue it, it might be the clearest thing I ever did, the most conscious. I could see exactly what would happen, and I said no. But I made that decision while I was still frozen in everything else. Still going along, still feeling like I didn't have a choice. And that's how deep it goes. Section 6. When the fog started to lift. So what changed? I started reading Alice Miller, John Bradshaw, books about toxic family systems, about narcissism, about how hurt people hurt people. I started to find the words for what had happened to me. And I went back to college. I was 36 years old, sitting in a classroom at Columbia College in Chicago. And for a moment, my mind wandered. I looked around at the blackboards, the books, the little desks, and I thought, I'm here. I'm really here. Then the teacher asked me a question, and I froze. It was the same freeze I felt when I was in boarding school, that icy terror that washed over me decades later in a completely safe classroom. But then something happened. I realized I knew the answer. I knew the answer. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't retarded. I wasn't broken. I knew the answer. And I said it. And the teacher nodded and said, "Good." That moment cracked something open. I whispered to myself, "Thank you for this chance, and thank you for helping me to realize that what happened back then had nothing to do with education, and it had nothing to do with God." I was actively shedding an identity that had been forced into me for decades. The nuns decided I was stupid. My family groomed me for passivity. My in-laws treated me like I didn't exist. None of them got to decide who I was. I did. Section 7. This is for you. If any of this sounds familiar, I need you to hear me. If you're saving screenshots because you need proof the conversation happened the way you remember it, you're not crazy. If you're keeping emails, recording calls, writing things down because you know no one will believe you otherwise, you're not paranoid. If you're sitting in your room right now wondering if maybe you are the problem, if maybe you're too sensitive, if maybe you're remembering it wrong, but something in your gut says otherwise, trust your gut. The fact that you feel the need to gather evidence, that tells you everything you need to know about the environment you're in. Healthy relationships don't require a paper trail. I kept documents for 40 years, not because I wanted to, but because I had to, because it was the only way to hold on to my own mind when everyone around me was trying to convince me I was losing it. You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You are not the problem. You're surviving. And here's the thing. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I was 15, when I was 23, when I was 36. You don't need anyone's permission to trust yourself. That validation that you're waiting for, that moment when someone finally confirms that, yes, what happened was real. Yes, you're perceiving it correctly. Yes, you're allowed to feel the way that you feel. You can give that to yourself. You are the witness that you have been waiting for. You are the one. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment, or just know that you're not alone. And I'll see you the next time, the next episode of Journey Expansion.
Thank you for joining this chat. Best wishes to you, always.
Journey Expansion. Expanding life's possibilities